A Rust-style survival game meets chivalry / Mortal combat? Sign me the frig up right now. It's been nearly 5 years since I made a video talking about this very style of game, and I even went as far as to plead with Torn Benner, the creators of Chivalry, to create Chivalry 2 Medieval Survival. It didn't work. They ended up going with Mirage. But I guess now they're back on track with making Chivalry 2, but not as a survival game. I was sure 5 years ago that soon enough we'd see the survival game of my dreams, a Rust-inspired speed of gameplay with raiding that was more PvP based than actual survival, and it's taken this damn long for it to finally be in the works. All it took was two ambitious Rust and Chivalry fans to watch Facepunch's Ruin game fall into, ruin, and then combine the two styles of game together. Lords and ladies of the realm, I introduce to you Renown. If you want to get involved with the early development of this game and even speak to the two head developers of it, I strongly urge you to join their Discord, which I've linked at the top of the description. I've even included their Twitter. They're really great guys who showed me around on their game in its current state and pretty much did a full interview with me and answered any questions I had, addressed any concerns, and even took a few ideas to implement into the game. But I might release that full interview in the next video. For now, we'll be talking about what this game is and why I'm so passionate for it to succeed. This is not a sponsored video, by the way. This is genuine excitement at the fact that we are the closest we've ever been to getting a good medieval survival game. But what makes it good? Well, let's move on into the meat of the video. So, Renown. Let's dive in. A lot of you already here must know at this point that Rust isn't really a survival game, unless you want to say that it's a survival game in the fact that you really are only surviving against other players on the server. Food and water are never really a pressing issue. You don't have to scarf down breakfast, second breakfast, 11C's luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper like you're a Shire-dwelling hobbit. You won't have to combine this item with that item, then that item to another item you just made by combining other items to make another item that eventually makes a door handle for your door. No! It's not going to be that tedious. What it is going to be is nothing like any other medieval survival game you've ever seen. Reign of Kings? Shit. Life is Feudal? Big grind. Black Death? Haha! Conan Exiles? Well, Conan Exiles is actually pretty dope as a survival game, but that's its own animal. Valhall? Scam. Citadel? More like Shitadel. Medieval Dynasty? What even the heck was that? Nothing, and I mean nothing, in the medieval survival genre has ever scratched the itch that has been plaguing a very large audience for years. In fact, all those games just made the itch even worse. Except for Valheim. That game was an anomaly. It came out of nowhere, did amazingly, but it doesn't have much of a PvP element, and it didn't need to as its own game. But I yearn for a PvP-based survival game to get rid of that itch, and so do many other people. Well, here's your back scratcher, guys, because my bet is that Renown will be the creme de la creme of the open-world medieval survival sandbox game genre as a PvP-based game. Instead of the normal slow-paced survival game that you normally have to slog through for no payoff at the end, in Renown, you'll be thrust straight into the action just like in Rust. You'll have opportunities to make plays, much like a naked running into a war zone in Rust, picking up an AK and killing the final survivors of the fight. Now let me paint you this same picture, but as Renown. You spawn, you hear the distant clanging of steel on steel, maybe the thunderous boom of a battering ram pounding the gate to a keep. You run over to investigate, and a player in tier 3 knight armor is dead by the ram, killed by an archer. The player's raiding are too caught up in their siege to notice as you creep up from behind. Loot the kit, equip the claymore, and you begin to go to town on the unsuspecting raiders. You escape with a few endgame kits and weapons, meet up with a friend, build a base, store your loot, and you've just snowballed your way to Renown's fastest start ever, the 10,000 hour duo content. Now, the point of this scenario is to show you that this is how the game will be so similar to Rust in that it's a survival against other players. A speedy and fun process. And they're going to be wiping some servers weekly, some monthly, and there will be support to have community servers, so it's going to be very much paced like Rust. And don't worry for you quirkier players, there's going to be VoIP. We'll be able to roleplay and get up to weird things and make friends on the server. Now, the map. At the moment, they're really going the legacy route, as in they're having a map that doesn't change. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of this, but they did explain in the interview how it was too difficult for them at the moment, which is completely understandable. But they did mention the possibility of ProcGen maps coming in the future, depending on the success of the game. For those of you who don't know what ProcGen maps are, they're procedurally generated maps, meaning there is no one map and it's different from wipe to wipe like in Rust. I personally love ProcGen because it feels like a new adventure every time, with new lands to conquer and claim or to be booted out from. Now, speaking of scenarios, I even painted out one 5 years ago in my video about this type of game, and it still gives me shivers that this could be in this game, Renown. When they break down the gates, your main gate, and they rush in, and you and all your people are just standing there with a sword, and it looks like this. Oh, please, I need this. So as you saw there was a little bit of gameplay from Chivalry. The combat on Renown is going to be very similar in the fact that you'll be able to position yourself to do faster or slower swings to try and beat a block or throw its timing off. I think I convinced the devs to get rid of that cheese feint crap, because honestly, it just isn't fun. And if I can win 1v3s on Mordhau and Shiv without them, I think that proves that feints aren't needed for fights, to not last a long time and be a battle of the stamina. For example, there will be ripostes. A riposte is where you block and attack right as you successfully block to speed up your attack. And with this mechanic, you can make it out like you're going to hit the person who just tried to attack you, but then you quickly switch to the other person who was trying to kill you and you hit them. This, my friends, is called a character switch. You've probably seen already in the footage of me dueling one of the devs here that sometimes I will aim up high and balance my mouse down around his block so that it throws off his timing and hit him in the foot. This is what is known as a drag. It's a bit more of an advanced tactic, and it was taught to me by a couple of friends I made back when I played Chivalry every single day after work. It's fairly easy to learn but hard to master, but these are my attempts at it after years of not playing. And also, don't fret, spin to win won't be a thing. There won't be reverse overheads and shit like that. As much as I love them, I know they're not viable for the success of the game. Also, I'll briefly touch on weapons as well. There's going to be all sorts of weapons, from bows to crossbows, spears to javelins, bastard swords to great swords, axes to maces, etc, etc. So you're going to have an array of weapons to pick from that best suit your fighting style. So let's talk about the bases and raiding. In Renown, there will be a heavy focus on door raiding, as that's going to be the cheapest and weakest point of entry. You'll be able to make a handheld battering ram, much like the ones they use in the police force or the military, but for those of you who like to dream big, you'll be happy to know that there will be siege ladders, siege towers, catapults, ballista, and the likes to maim those unsuspecting settlements with. Now, bases are another big part of Rust. People love base building in that game. It's simple, not overpriced, and you can do some really creative things to truly make it a fortified place of fear for the little people on the server. Or you can make it something tanky, small and cozy, which is normally my route. But in this, they're going a slightly different way, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. And keep in mind, this stuff is subject to change, but instead of having a furnace inside of your base, for example, you'll build a blacksmith, as you can see here. It comes with everything you'd need to bang out metal objects, even coming with its own NPC who stays in the blacksmith as part of the furniture. If you want something like a sword crafted up, you give your resources to the blacksmith and they'll craft it up for you. You'll also have a warehouse to store loot as well, which will gradually fill up as you fill it up. At the moment, you can't really walk into them, but as development progresses and when the game launches, you should be able to. The fortress is going to be your main residence, so you may want to put some extra doors down within it, lest they be battered down. Eventually, as you progress, your humble buildings will be upgradable until you're left with something like this: the end game. Now, the reason I'm not the biggest fan of this route is because I feel like it takes away from the creativity of the base building scene. In Rust, you'll see some really unique builds, and if you're not brute forcing your way into a base and you're trying to conserve your boom, you really need to look at the base like a puzzle and determine how you'll crack it open. Sometimes you'll fail, sometimes you'll succeed. It really gives people a chance. It kind of takes away from both base builders and raiders, because raiders will know to probably target the blacksmith or the warehouse or whatever storage house there will be in the game that will most likely yield the best loot. But again, this is the early stages of development. It's all subject to change, and the devs and I had a good chat about this in our interview as well, so make sure you check that out when it releases. So there will be a similar system to Rust TC, and that will be your banner. With your banner, you'll put in upkeep and it will provide you with a radius that blocks out other people building in. So depending on the size of your keep, you'll probably have external banners, just like external TCs, to stop people from just building in. I'd imagine this won't stop a siege tower though. But anyway guys, this was just the first taste of Renown. Again, if this interests you, make sure you go join their Discord and or follow them on Twitter. Both of those links are at the top of the description. All of this is obviously subject to change, as it's still in the very early development stages, but just going off of their even unpolished combat alone, and how good it is already, this game is going to be an amazing PvP medieval survival game. Make sure to check out the full interview in the next video.